that way. We will not cooperate with ICE.
And to his credit, okay, the Democratic Party's mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, is actually staying true to his word. His city has not only not cooperated with ICE deportation procedures, but in multiple cases, ICE officers have come under attack from communist revolutionaries in the streets. As you can see from this video clip playing right here beside me, as Chicago Police Department has simply refused to help defend fellow peace officers. But Johnson isn't acting alone. According to a new statewide survey of likely 2026 Illinois Democratic primary voters conducted by M3 Strategies, reveals that a significant share of Democratic voters in Illinois view violence against federal immigration officers as acceptable, under certain circumstances, of course. An overwhelming 71% said they want ICE officers prosecuted when Democrats take back control of the federal government, and 77% agreed with the statement that ICE officers are, quote, jackbooted thugs who are disappearing and kidnapping Black and brown people. Chicago, a one-party city and a one-party state, has gone full communist. And you never go full commie. Lawlessness is now the law of that land. And the only question is, what will the feds under President Trump do about it? Last December, Board Czar Tom Homan made clear what his intentions were going to be with any mayors, like Chicago's Brandon Johnson, who resisted lawful ICE deportations. Watch.
We're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois. If your Chicago mayor doesn't want to help, he can step aside. But if he impedes us, if he knowingly harbors and conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him.
We're now joined by our freedom friend from Chicago, freedom-loving friend, Terry Newsome, who is the host of the popular Behind Enemy Lines podcast. You flagged this survey for us, Terry. Tell us about who conducted it and why. I believe it was a group of Republicans, right?
Well, it's an independent study, but I think they say that on both sides. But it was an independent study that was recently just came out in the last few days of supposedly primary Democratic voters, and they seem to be okay with violence, interfering with ICE. These are all federal crimes, right? And I think what's happening in the city of Chicago is because of the statements by Pritzker and Johnson. They feel emboldened to go after these officers. And if you see in the news, it's getting worse and worse by the week, right? They're ramming vehicles. They're throwing bricks at them. The media is protecting them. The politicians in the state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago, are doxing ICE officers. And they think it's okay. And I think they think that they're going to get a path because Pritzker and Johnson are endorsing and supporting this promotion of violence against ICE.
Okay, so let's talk about this doxing, because this is very dangerous. And these are not just anybody. Explain to us who these people are. And I think we actually have some of those screenshots just to support what we're saying here. These are elected Democrat officials, correct? And they're sharing information about where ICE officials are located so people can go protest, attack them. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, we could bring I don't know if you have it up there, but one is a state rep, Will Gazzardi, 39th District. And if you go to his Facebook page, you'll see his doxing of these ICE agents. Another one is Jamie Dre, state representative of the 40th District as well. And there's more, right? These are just a couple of them, Emerald. And these people are emboldening these illegals, these criminals, as well as those that support them that may or may not be here legally as well. And keep in mind, as you covered the story in the last couple of years, right? All these people in the city of Chicago, minorities, were complaining about these illegals, including the Hispanic community. But now the mainstream media has so much control of the narrative, right? Many times, most cases, it's fake narratives about the things that the ICE agents are doing, and handcuffing little Black black child. I don't know if you saw that. Well, it ended up being an African-American police officer from Texas who was outraged that the city of Chicago media used his video of him and his son, supposedly son, being handcuffed by ICE. So they are using everything in their power to propagate these lies. I believe personally, I said this for a while, they're going to try to use this to ignite the Democrats' second civil war within the United States of America.
Okay, let's dive into that a little bit deeper. You believe that these ICE protests could actually turn into a greater conflict that, especially in Chicago, looks a little akin to a civil war?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, if you see the violence that's going on, or the attempted violence and the threats and the screaming at these officers just at the ICE facility, and I think we might have covered it before, you know, they're screaming and chanting, shoot ICE, kill ICE, right? And then more emboldened they get by the press of Pritzker, our governor, basically saying it's okay to go after. Matter of fact, they want to arrest these federal officers for doing their jobs. Now keep in mind, the Democrats own this crisis, right? We all know they opened the borders on purpose. We all know they used our money to support them, to give them tax dollars, to pay for them, for their existence in our state. And you know what? They own the violence that they call violence within their communities, because they're the sanctuary cities and states. They're the ones who refuse to hand over criminals, murderers, violent criminals when they get released from Cook County Jail. They own it. So they own the cost of bringing these people here, housing them, and they're going to own the cost of getting rid of these people, which is probably going to cost more because our agents have to find a needle in a haystack, right? And it's going to cost more money to and track them down and house them and send them back on the same chartered planes that they were flown in by.
This was an intentional invasion into the United States to do exactly what it's doing, right? To
absolutely
division and conflict and destabilize major cities in the United States. We talked about this for years.
Yes. Yeah, they're trying to demonize these agents. You know, for instance, and again, I think you covered it over here in a hotel by my house. These radical leftists, Marxists, Antifa are over there yelling at the agents, trying to keep them awake at night. Matter of fact, the one in Downers Grove, radical leftist community by mine, some of the agents had to move there because the mayor is kind of, you know, he's a leftist. And they shouldn't even allow those people to go on the property to try to keep the agents awake in the evening. These guys are leaving their families, and now they're working without pay, and now they're being threatened. They're being threatened, and the government of the state of Illinois is supporting and endorsing this. And then you saw the reports. The Democrats in the state of Illinois are okay with violence. They're okay with interfering with arrests. They're okay with hurting the ICE officers. And it's only going to get worse from here. It's only going to get worse. You got these idiots, uneducated, many illegal gang members that are going to see this as a dog whistle to go after our ICE agents. And mark my word, one of our agents is going to be killed by one of these scumbags, and it's going to fall on the shoulders of Biden, Pritzker, and Johnson.
I do think that's a great risk that we're in right now of one of our brave, ICE agents getting killed. What though is, we played what Tom Homan had said previously, right, about these Democratic elected mayors, these Democrat officials who block ICE from doing their job. What have you seen from the federal government of late, particularly as it pertains to Chicago? Terry, I would think that these elected representatives, state representatives, doxing ICE agents would rise to, would be criminal, right? It rises to the occasion of criminality. So what have you seen from the federal government? We haven't talked about that much lately.
I'm hoping, right? We've heard noise, right, coming from the DOJ about going after the Pritzkers and Johnson, right? And I hope somebody sees your show from the administration, sees these politicians. Matter of fact, I texted them to Tom before we jumped on the phone. They have the evidence there, right? This is interfering with investigations, and all we're doing is executing the law that's on the books. That's it. All we're doing is executing the law that's on the books. So what is wrong with doing that? If they have an issue, go back to your politicians and change it. Nobody has the right to kind of walk into our borders openly and then, oh, by the way, if they don't commit a crime, that's okay. We shouldn't go after them. They didn't commit a crime and they've been here for 5 years. Well, if that's the rules of immigration, then anybody could come in to the United States of America from anywhere, slither across our border, not commit a crime, then have the Democrats say, oh, well, he hasn't committed a crime, so let him stay here. And what's the purpose of having a border?
Well, here is the here is the positive news, and I was looking it up just to confirm that I'm correct, because I just saw this this morning. This is not in Chicago, but there has been a federal indictment in a terror case against Antifa. This is in Texas, where I'm trying to get this pulled up for our producers, but at least the feds are getting involved there, right? This Antifa group is accused of plotting a terror plot. They have now been federally indicted based on this administration's push to designate them as terrorists. It's considered terrorism. But it sounds like there's the case to be made for similar measures in Chicago, and that's what you would like to see happen.
Absolutely. And as you know, a few years ago, remember the FBI contacted me, came to my house because of Antifa threats. Under the Biden administration, I got a call this week from the FBI about Antifa. Antifa was arrested at the ICE centers, the Hammond brothers, the two main Chicago Antifa. People are being paid and enabled and shown up with all their gas masks and shields, and they're found with weapons. The Democrats are defending Antifa. Why? Why are they going out of their way to pretend it's not a real organization? It is a real organization because they want to ignite. They have no policies to stand by. They're losing their votes, right? Their voter base. People think they're a joke. So they have no other opportunity otherwise to create a civil war and disruption amongst our country. Will it get to a civil war? I hope, I pray not. But they are trying to create violence. They're trying to separate us by race and immigrant.
And here's the thing, Terry Newsome, we're gonna have to, we're running out of time, but this is so important what you're saying. They must do something now because it is a coordinated effort, because it was a planned invasion, because it is destabilizing cities like Chicago. We know that it's going to happen more as we get into 2026 and head towards the midterms, because we saw that in past election cycles. And everything rises. As I said in my previous segment, everything hinges on on our elections in 2026. The left knows that. They know what's at stake. There are rhinos who are in on it, right? It's just, can Trump galvanize his officials at the DOJ to do something? I heard he had an important meeting last week and there was an ultimatum delivered. Let's see if there's any action this week, Terry Newsome. You're raising the red flag. You're talking to who you can. Let's see how this proceeds this week. Terry Newsome, thank you so much, as always, for going behind enemy lines and sharing what you find with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Emerald.